Welcome to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. Our first recapping a weekend of UAAP men's basketball games. Season 88 is underway. We've had a pair of exciting close games, including an overtime thriller to start the season, which was probably the best season opener ever, maybe? Well, at least as far as I remember from the time I was covering UAP. So we'll get into that. And then we had a pair of blowouts, one totally expected, the other one not so expected, which opens the door for the question, is there a new championship contender in the picture in UAAP men's basketball? All that and more. We're going to be talking to Karl Batungbacal of Humble Bola. He's also a contributor to All Star. And we're going to dissect what happened this weekend during the games. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're now back in the episode and we're joined by Carl. Carl, like myself, got to catch the games, I believe, from home. This was the first opening weekend I caught from home in a long, long time. I'll just write it down as adulting reasons why I had to end up staying home. Time catches up to everyone and our responsibilities add up. But I did get to cover the games, watching them, trying to break it down. And sometimes when you watch the games from home compared to at the arena, you tend to see the floor a little bit better. You get to see a few aspects a little more. So I guess we should start with what we saw Sunday night. Collins Akoi, 29 points, 17 rebounds, absolutely dominant, leading the UST Growling Tigers to a 20-point rout over the UP Fighting Maroons. First instinct, Carl, when I look back at that game is I kind of expected it to play out like Philoil did. Because remember, UST and UP had the Philoil elimination round matchup where UST built a big early lead. And then after that, UP came back. I think they cut it to four, maybe. And then UST pulled it out at the end. So I was waiting for that inevitable UP run. And in the second quarter, when Harold Alarcon had a stretch of scoring 8 straight points, it felt like we were on the way to getting there. But each time UP tried to mount a comeback, UST had an answer. They dumped the ball inside to their big man. Collins Akoi went to work, and every time he attacked, whether that was off the dribble, back to the basket, it felt like he was going to get a layup, a push shot, or free throws. UP even tried to employ the hack a strategy there in the third period. And it was the same strategy they kind of employed in game three of the finals against LaSalle last year. It kind of worked because Mike Phillips and LaSalle struggled from the free throw line, and their free throw struggles in that game were well documented. And it's not exactly like Akowe shot lights out from the free throw line, 11 out of 21. And he still had 29 points, shot 9 out of 15 from the field. So imagine if he makes a few more extra free throws. Well, he could have had more. He could have surpassed his high school career high in his first college game, which is so crazy to think about, especially considering that he was going up against the defending champions of the UAAP. Now, look, UP no longer has Quentin Milora Brown. They don't have Malik Diouf and Francis Naruka, God bless his soul, for his offensive capabilities. He is not the defensive player that those guys we mentioned are. But they're still UP and they're still good and they're still the defending champs and they won the Phil Oil Championship. But Akowe toyed with them. UST was in command from start to finish. They dominated from start to finish. And they did all of that without Fortsky Padragao. Now, if you want to bring up an early hot take of, is UST actually better without Fortsky? I'm not exactly going to accept it, but I'm open to having the conversation. Ultimately, I think they need Fortsky to win a championship, assuming that's their goal, which I believe it is. But they did not miss Fortsky in this game. Kyle Paranada ended up playing the sidekick role, but still was superb. 18 points, 5 of 9 shooting, 4 assists. And I felt he established the tone early along with Akowe. And I have some research about Collins I want to share later on. But first, Carl, I want to get your thoughts about what transpired in this game because just to give you some additional stats for context, UST shot 43.3% from the field. At one point, they were at 63% at the half. They won despite shooting just 4 out of 20 from 3-point distance. They out-rebounded UP 52 to 39, including 21 offensive rebounds. Akowe had 8 offensive rebounds and 9 defensive rebounds. Only 3 guys scored in double figures for UP. Alarcon, 11 points and 16 shots, so very ineffective. Bailao at 11 points and 5 of 6 shooting. He was decent. And Belmonte, 12 points on 4 of 6 shooting. But overall, UP shot just 37.5% from the field and just 5 out of 22 from downtown. So what did you see from UST and UP in that game?
Well, if we're being honest, I think the thing with UST was that they recognized that UP, unfortunately for this season, does not have a big man in the middle. So Collins Akoi was able to do anything and everything he wanted to do in the paint on both ends of the floor, as evidenced by his 17 rebounds and 29 points. Well, most of them came from the free throw line, but still, it was a big chunk. So that was a major deal for UST, and recognizing the mismatches that he had for the better part of 3 quarters, it was surprising that UP was unable to at least prevent him from doing so. Like what you pointed out, they did the hack. I think who was it? Who said it? I think it was Dip yata who said the Akowe strategy. So that was an interesting maneuver for them because it made sense to at least prevent him from rolling consistently throughout the game. But Akowe showed no problems, or at least no hesitation in putting up his points from the free throw line. It's 11 out of 21. That's barely 50%. But still, those are 11 points that UST sorely needed because they had a big lead at the end of the first quarter. It was 31 to 19, if I'm remembering correctly. And UP just did not have that takeover guy that they've been having for the past few seasons. Last year it was Maymay. So this year, Maymay Kagulangan, for those who don't know. For this season, I don't see anyone, or at least I'm not seeing anyone as of yet, who can completely take over his role, especially in the clutch. That was the biggest problem for UP, especially on the offensive side. Defense, I can understand the struggles, but they were able to keep the game close. If we're looking at the per quarter breakdown in the second and third quarter, USD won it just by 2 points, 26 to 24. In the third quarter, UP won it 14 to 13. Then the fourth quarter was a disaster of a 10-17 run for UST. So the offense and the defense are there. But the problem is the takeover, the clutch guy, the go-to person that you would want to have the ball in your hands to really take over the offense. UP does not have that. Ray Remogat could be that guy. We know he can be that guy. I don't know if he can be that guy. I know he's talented. I respect him a lot. But the showing against USD brings up a lot more questions for the defending champions.
That was my biggest concern for UP entering the season. Obviously, the loss of QMB means that suddenly your rim protection and your paint protection isn't as invincible as it was last season because QMB was a generational type of defender, and even Malik Diop before him was an elite defender at the rim as well. And that's important for UP. Why? Because UP, as this game also indicated in some stretches, their best offense is when they can force turnovers or get those rebounds off missed shots and run. They are a running team. Half court, if you make them have to beat you with sets and execution and patience, they can do it as well, but they're not as lethal as they are when they're a running team. In fact, if you make UP a half court team, there's a good chance you can play them to the pace that you want. And that's why UST is not a great matchup for UP. Now, I do realize that UST just snapped a 9 game losing streak against UP. And 8 out of those 9 last losses, by the way, the last time UST beat UP before, as we're recording this on Sunday, September 21, was in 2019, that Final Four, before the pandemic pa. So matagal na. And in those 9 wins by UP against UST in that winning streak, 8 were by double digits, and the one time it wasn't was the Final Four season 87. UP won by 9. But you saw signs of UST matching up well against UP last season because even if the final scores ended up having wide margins, there were stretches there where UST was going mano a mano against UP. And we're talking about the championship UP that had Kagulangan and QMB and Francis Lopez. We can't forget him too because Francis Lopez was part of the team, and I felt like they sorely missed him today as well. They sorely missed that north to south ability where he gets the ball, puts his head down, drives to the rim, creates free throw shooting opportunities, and just is a one man fast break crew. So they missed that today. If you can make UP a half court team, you can beat them. And UST has the offense to make UP a half court team because they have the firepower to match up against anyone in the UAAP, not just UP. When those guys have it going, Paranada, Caballero, Lemit, Crisostomo, Buenaflor, even Calum had these moments, and now Akowe being able to dump the ball to him in the post, and he can get you 2 points, he can get to the free throw line. That means you're slowing down the offensive rhythm of the other team as well, and that's what happened. And UP never truly recovered. Now, back to the Kagulangan point, that was the most important part I felt UP needed to find a solution to because JD, yes, he was a clutch shooter. Yes, he could penetrate the defense. Yes, he could score when needed to. But more than anything, he just knew situational awareness, the things that you can't teach, no matter how good your coach is sometimes. He knew who to get the ball to at the right time. He knew when to rush the offense, when to settle down. He was a floor general, a court general. Now, a lot of people immediately anticipated, okay, JD's out, Ray comes in. Now, Ray Remogat, in his first game as a UP Fighting Maroon, 5 points and 2 of 6 shooting, but more surprising was just 9.5 minutes of action. Sometimes in blowouts, minutes get weird, so I'm not reading too much into that. But I don't think people should expect Remogat to be JD Kagulangan because their games are different. JD had a great balance of knowing when to score and when to play make, and had, by last season, season 87, a wealth of experience. That's why some people are complaining. Why does he have 1 year of eligibility left? Because he had been in college basketball for a while. That was a vet. Remogat has played 2 seasons with UE, did residency, and he's now coming into a totally new situation. Because at UE, Ray had the green light. He could shoot really as much as he wanted to because he was the best player of the team, and the stats allowed him to be the runner-up in the MVP race in season 86. But he's not JD in terms of being a court general, at least not yet. And you know what? I don't think you should make Ray that kind of player because Ray, while he can pass, he's best straight as his scoring abilities. And if you try to make him something he's not, then are you really putting him in the position to be the best player he can be?
Well, on that point, Ray is, I would agree. Ray is not the, not, you should, UP fans shouldn't expect Ray Remegat to completely take over the JD Kagulangan role because you're correct. He is not as well polished, I would say, as a floor general compared to JD. But if there's someone that I was at least expecting to try and take over the game, I was expecting him to be more assertive or at the very least show the guts. Instead, it was Harold Alarcon, and I respect him for that. 4 of 16 shooting, sige, let's give him that. It was a cold shooting night. Pero Harold is talented. God bless his soul, he's good. But I don't think, or I'm not seeing him as someone I would want to have the ball in his hands when UP is trailing or when UP is looking to build a lead. I am completely expecting that to fall on Remogat at the very least because sige, we can give that that Harold is the vet or at least one of the key holdovers for UP this season along with Terence Fortea. one of the best and one of the most pesky defenders I think we've seen in the past few seasons. But again, the takeover aspect is it's overrated, especially in the UAAP, because supposedly in college basketball, anyone can and should be able to take over. But in a high stakes game such as this, where UP, so much pressures on UP at the very start of the season to at least repeat or to get back into the finals at the minimum, I was expecting someone to take that step forward. And biased as it may be, or at least high expectations as it may be, I was hoping that Ray would have that opportunity. Now, as he pointed out, he had 9 minutes only to play, but those 9 minutes were not as effective as I expected. I did not see him as a force of nature, or at least a momentum shifting player for this game, at the very least for this game, because we have 13 games remaining. He can turn it up. I'm confident in the guy. He can turn it up. But for this game, it was disappointing. But sige, let's just say it's the first game jitters type of thing. But I have high expectations. That's all I'm coming from.
Now, a couple of other UP guys whose numbers we should read out right now. Francis Noruka had 6 points on 3 of 6 shooting, 11 rebounds, but struggled to take care of the ball, 5 turnovers, also 3 fouls. Fortea, like you mentioned, 4 points. Jerry Abadiano, the captain, 2 points, only 8 minutes. Felicilda played 13 minutes, scored 4 points. So that's something in the rotation. I'm curious how UP is going to balance because you have Felicilda, Remogat, Alarcon, Fortea, Abadiano playing the guard. So not everyone is going to get a bunch of minutes. And more often than not, Coach Gold, I think, is going to go with the players who are the most consistent that day. Gianni Stevens played 17 minutes but went scoreless. 0 points, 0 4 from the field. And I'm not sure if you read the Facebook comments after the game, but with regards to Gianni's matchup, or certain times he was matched up against Akowe, it's not exactly. If you're a Gianni fan, I wouldn't be reading that tonight. Maybe visit the pages a few days later. And Gianni's someone that they need to step up, I feel. Because yes, Naruka is a good offensive weapon. Defense remains to be seen. But he can't be the only big that's productive. Now, Sean Alter, I feel, is the backup big man. He's gonna get easy 2 points from the dunker spot, wide open layups, wide open dunks. He can block some shots, but maybe he'll score in some pick and roll situations, but he's not yet the go-to offensive option down in the lower block. I felt Stevens needs to be that guy, impose his will a bit, because look, if it's going to be a lot of jump shots taken by the UP players, that could mean more long rebounds for the defense to run out to and get easy scoring opportunities for. And we saw UST do that. And UST has led. Buenaflor, Crisostomo, Lemit, Caballero. Then you have guards like Paranada and Forts keep pushing the pace. If you have long rebounds against a team, they're gonna run, and they like to run. And just to give you some background information about UST as well, I was talking to assistant coach Juno Sauler after tonight's win against UP, and I was like, Coach, I'm just curious, what was the game plan? What was the offensive dynamic and defensive dynamic you guys wanted to establish? He told me straight up, he's like, we don't really run anything. We let the players decide. I'm like, offense and defense? He's like, yes. Offense and defense, they let the players read and react to what's happening on the court. The only time they call set plays is after timeouts or certain dead ball situations when they feel it's getting a little too messy. But maybe like, I'm guessing here, like 70-80% of the time, they let the players decide. And today, I have to give the players props because they realized early on UP had no answer for Collins Akoi. And they kept going to it. They spammed it. Collins, here's the ball. Collins, do your thing. Collins realized, oh, they can't stop me. They just keep sending me to the foul line. So I'm going to flex every opportunity I get. I'm going to play with joy. I'm going to play with excitement. Now, look, you can't expect Collins to do this every game, right? When he goes up against Mike Phillips, maybe your Omar John, some of the defensive minded big men, it's gonna be harder, but Akowe just raises UST's ceiling. When UST picked him up, and by the way, he almost went to LaSalle. So just imagine a world where LaSalle could have had him and Phillips together. I mean, talk about possibly going undefeated. I mean, I don't know, but like that would have been hard to deal with. Um, but he chose UST ultimately because he felt that, oh, I don't want to wait 1 year playing less minutes compared to Mike, because Mike is an MVP candidate, probably the front runner. Well, now Akoy might give him, oh, wait, the best FSA award. Forgot about that. Not exactly a fan of that. Anyway, but Collins' mindset was, I don't want to wait around and play behind someone. And then UST got the spot to make an impact right away. Like everyone said, yeah, it's going to be a competition, Peter and Collins. We all knew from the start that spot was going to Collins, right? And now we saw why, for a good reason. He was ready to dominate. He's lost some weight since the last time it was announced that he was joining UST. Last time we saw him in Asia Basket. He's been working with True Focus religiously, and I was talking to Jolo Tamayo for True Focus tonight as well, and he was just raving, saying Collins gives 110% every time. His coaches are noticing his ability to connect with teammates more, and he's gonna talk trash. He's gonna be physically imposing. The guy is built like a tank. Hey, guess what? He has 4 more years of eligibility after the season as well. So good luck, UAAP, because he is a handful. And Carl, a lot of teams are gonna have to deal with him.
It's a problem. It is already a problem, Navs. You know, I'm just looking at the stat sheet right now. I just checked. So upon double checking, the fouls on Collins Akoi is at 14. The second highest on the UST team fouls on, it's Kyle Paranada with 4.
Good lord.
So so looking at that stat, you can already notice how UST was attacking UP. As you pointed out, Collins was being anywhere and everywhere at once, making barbecue chicken of Sean Alter in the middle. Gani Stevens barely even was able to contain him at the very least. He had 17 rebounds. And I think one of the things that stuck out when talking about Collins Akoi was the post game interview. He said when he was asked about the game plan for UST, he said that he was just asked to do a Collins Akoi thing. None of us knew what the hell he meant, but now we know. I was just laughing my ass off when he said that, like, Collins Akoi thing. If by Collins Akoi thing he means it's a 29-17 outing, then yes, I understand. That's a plus 27 just for that guy in 31 minutes. Mind you, 31 minutes. this man
Jesus.
this man sat for about 8 minutes and 45 seconds, put up 29 and 17 on the reigning champions of the UAAP. This is the guy that you look out for on UST without discounting Paranada in Fortsky and Nick Caballero. You watch out for Akowe in the middle. You take your bigs and you do the Giannis, you put a wall around him as best as you can because Collins will break that wall. Seeing what UP tried to do earlier, there was a semblance of team defense or at least trying to contain him. But Collins was good in getting the guards some very, very clean separation of the screens, of the drop passes for the easy basket. And if there's one thing that I am raving about really, really well about Collins, that will be very, very blasphemous to the Ateneo community. Collins Akoi has the footwork of Ange Kwame in his fourth season. And this guy has 4 years, 5 years of eligibility. First year this year. He was more polished than Ange in his first year. The footworks, the off the shoulder fakes. Man, this dude is not human at the very least. But UST, kudos to everyone. As you said, Coach Juno Soler giving them the freedom to run their plays on the court. It was very freelance. Now that you pointed it out, I understand it. Looking back on the some of the highlights that are running through my head, UST didn't have that much set plays except for the timeouts, as you pointed out. That makes sense. and just letting the game flow. I think that's one of the things in college basketball now that is being overlooked. Letting the players run their own schemes, whoever they feel has the best matchup. Because once you get too stringent on the players, they get very, very confused and they lose their confidence. And that's the one thing you don't want them to happen. So kudos to UST. I did not expect that at all. So we're gonna have a long season ahead, Navs.
Definitely. And you can just see the evolution of the young players nowadays with all the training programs and the trainers that they have teaching them skills and development. The game just keeps getting better and better. And Collins is a game changer. Now, next weekend's matchup against LaSalle is going to be tougher. He's going to get Phillips and that defensive energy trying to halt him and stop him. How he responds to that, I'm very curious to see because I'm probably getting close to saying UST can join that UP LaSalle column. Now we'll be talking about your Ateneo Blue Eagles in a bit, and let's see how that goes because the FEU game had some great signs, but also some signs that we have to dissect and say, oh, okay, they need to work on that. But I want to see how UST looks with Fortsky back. If it's the same dynamic, if it's the same chemistry, if it's the same flow. They're getting there though. UST is knocking on the door. Now, I should mention too that I personally don't like UST getting to play home games at the QPAV. I'm not saying that they won today because they played at UST. I know a lot of people are commenting indicating that they're so used to the courts and they're so used to the flooring and the environment and the atmosphere that it gives them an extra boost. And I'm not discounting that either. Like I can see how that might benefit a team, right? But I still don't think that's why they won. I think they won because they flat out outplayed UP. But at the same time, I kind of don't like it because the other seven teams don't have that chance. It would be fine if the other seven teams got to play home games in their own respective arenas and their own respective schools as well. I do know that USC is the host this year. Their QPAV is probably the best court for many of the school right now to play games in. We haven't seen the new Blue Eagle gym in action yet. Maybe in the future. But if you're gonna give UST that advantage, I think every school should have that advantage at least once as well. Ideally the same time. But we'll see how that progresses. Anyway, we're not really gonna go into NU versus UE with apologies to both teams. NU they did what they were supposed to do. UE there's some players there I like, but you can just see how they're gonna struggle this season and how they're gonna struggle to keep pace with other teams. I'm gonna be ready to talk about NU when they start facing the other elite teams. But kudos to NU, they did what they were supposed to do. They got the job done. So let's see how they progress. It's nice to see them healthy with an FSA. Okay, let's go to your Ateneo Blue Eagles because there were moments in that game against FEU, the season opener, where it was like, oh my god, here comes Ateneo. This is the dangerous Blue Eagles squad that so many people like myself on this podcast was hyping up in the off season, and I kept getting blowback at that point. Like they were last place last year, they're overrated. Tab can't win without Kwame. Adamson's better, FEU's better, NU's better. Again, it's just one game, and FEU gave them a run for their money for sure. But the talent of Ladi, of Escobar, of Lazo, of an improving batch of guys like Tuano, Espina, Bongo, incremental improvements, not major improvements, but small improvements. Adili, I feel like we haven't even really seen how much he can be unleashed yet. But just riding on on Ladi and Escobar, you can see that it raises the floor of Ateneo and the ceiling at the same time. Now, the key, like we saw in overtime when they were down six, is how well is Jared Bahay gonna play? Because before those clutch shots, there were jokes in our group chat that Jared was building a house with all the bricks he was putting up there, right? And then he got hot at the right time. So how consistent can Bahay be? My early takeaway is that Lodi Escobar and the other talented wings are gonna keep Ateneo competitive against anyone. but how high that ceiling can go will depend on their blue chip recruit point guard who has a history of winning in Cebu.
Well, I would agree because Jared Bahay is Ateneo's floor and ceiling raiser. I would say a lot of Ateneo's success this season will depend on him. If I'm being honest, I was watching the game at the QPAV live for Ateneo FEU. Jared Bahay putting up those bricks saddened me. It was hurtful. I expected better from him because I was like, oh damn, we're gonna lose. It's not gonna be good. It's gonna look extremely terrible. If I'm remembering correctly, he didn't make a shot or at least a field goal, which is a three, until the fourth quarter. If I'm remembering it completely correctly, he made a three when Ateneo was well, at least FEU was closing in. So you had Laddie and Escobar bringing the boom with them the whole time. I'm gonna call them the Crash Out Twins because if you're watching kay Manny Laddie and Dom Escobar on the floor, those are the two guys that are explosive on the court and they have the personality that brings them with it that they bring with them on the floor. Because I think one of the biggest problems that Ateneo had, especially last season, was yung angas, the swagger. Ateneo did not have that swagger last season. Yes, Chris Kuhn was there. Yes, Sean Ketevis was there. But kay Manny,
Those aren't
Dom
swagger
Escobar,
guys. I mean, I
no,
love
they're
Sean
not.
and Chris, but they're like nice guys.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
That's why you need someone like that. You had for the previously before Sean and Chris were there, you had 30 to do that. You had the flexing and all of the yelling and all of the rara whatever. We didn't have that last season for Ateneo. Now Laddie was there. He was just making shots. He was smiling at everyone. He was smiling at Mokonate. Dom Escobar was balling over everyone. Jared Bahay was just, he was just free balling it out there. He was just going with everyone else. So seeing Laddie and Escobar take the role of being the rara guys or the very super swag guys, the uber athletic wings, that was the biggest key for Ateneo. And that sounds very biased because I am from the Ateneo. But if I'm being honest, as a quote unquote non biased journalist, those guys are Ateneo's floor raisers. This was the talent that Ateneo was missing last season.
Why do you guys have to do that? We're from the Ateneo. We're from Ateneo. Just say that.
Hey, it's a habit. It's a habit born out of the
I
past 10
know.
years.
Trust me, I know. And
You know we have to do it every time because it's for the
do
brand. Everyone know,
you?
dude, it's like saying the Ohio State. It's the exact same thing.
Oh my god. um, no, no, respect to you Ateneans, of course. You the Ateneans. Look, we just should point out too, Kimani Ladi, if not for Collins, would have probably had the best stat line of the weekend. 26 points on 10 of 22 shooting, 9 rebounds, 3 of 7 from downtown. Had that clutch three-pointer that I thought was the dagger of the game in overtime. Dominic Escobar. Look, I've been hyping this guy up a lot when no one had seen him yet. I kept saying in this podcast, I'm going to toot my horn here a little bit. This Dom Escobar, everyone's saying he's really good. And you know what? First game in the UAP, 16 points on 7 of 10 shooting, 7 boards, 2 steals, plus 10 in 23 minutes. Now, a lot of people were wondering why wasn't he out there in crunch time? Two reasons. One is because he's still kind of recovering from a minor back injury he suffered in the tune-up game against San Beda recently. I think there were pictures of the tune-up. And also, he was cramping up in his first game. But also, we should give props to another one and done player, Jaden Lazo, who had 9 points off the bench, knocked down three balls. Divine Adili had 7 points, 5 rebounds. I think Divine is someone that Tab isn't gonna push to the front right away for two reasons. One, because he's still young. He was just playing high school months ago, and he's gonna take time to become the kind of player that I think many Athenians want him to be. But at the same time, too, if you play with Kimani at the five, you have such a unique advantage. The floor is spread out better. On defense, you're gonna suffer, but sometimes a good offense is the best defense. And when you have a shooting big man like Kimani who can rise up no matter how much he's contested and still get a good look at the rim because of how tall and lengthy he is, you're gonna have a very dynamic offense, and you can see Tab kind of doing that. Now the defense could use work because Janry Pasaol and Joric Bautista were maneuvering, getting to the paint, and like Tab said, they won that game after the contest. He said they won that game with talent, not with execution, not with coaching. Because Joric Bautista had 24 points on 9 of 23 shooting. January Pasol 24 and 11 of 24 shooting, but also 11 assists and 9 rebounds. Mo Konate 11 points, 23 boards, but also 5 turnovers. And that game could have gone either way. I should give my props to Coach Sean Chambers. When Maui of the Boleros and I did our podcast predictions episode, I predicted FU to have 4 wins. And Coach Sean and I, had a chat a few days later. He's like, Naveen, that was wrong. We're gonna prove you wrong. And you know what? With the way they played against Ateneo, I think they're probably gonna end up proving me wrong. I think they might end up having more than 4 wins. They should have had this win. They were up 6 in overtime. Now Kirby Moncopa, who debuted the Halley ones from Puma, by the way, not exactly the greatest game, just 14 minutes, 2 points. Even Neil Owens, their one and done prospect, just 3 points, took only 3 shots in 24 and a half minutes. Konate barely rested, played 44 minutes. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. But if you're FEU, the most exciting aspect here is Pasaol looks like he's ready. I personally thought Pasaol was a year away, that we would see glimpses this season. And then next season, he would take more of the mantle once Joric. I mean, Joric could play next season if he wanted to, but in case he left, right? But instead of this being a point guard one, point guard two situation between Bautista and Pasaol, it feels like it could be these two are the backcourt situation, and we're gonna live and die by them. Now, Connaught is still gonna be a major factor. The shooting touch near the rim could use work, but the rebounding is still intense. He just has a knack for rebounding the ball and being in the right place. Solid rim protector as well. And if you can complement that with those two guards doing their thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they played perfect, because I think they could have done a better job, Bautista in particular, setting up other teammates more. But if they can start setting up other teammates more and keep that scoring prowess going, and Konate lives up to the expectations we have of him, of being a force on both sides of the floor near the rim, then I feel like FEU, maybe not yet a Final Four contender, but maybe a Final Four spoiler for someone down the road.
No, I completely agree. I discounted FEU. I was one of those guys who at least predicted them a fifth place finish originally, but then looking at the roster and looking more into the situation in FEU, I actually predicted them finishing fourth, or at least fighting for a Final Four spot. Especially seeing how Janre Pasaol was there on the floor yesterday and Joric Bautista just taking over. It was the perfect storm for FEU to start their season. And I know it's not ideal because they lost, but at the same time, I can't even say how else that game could have gone because it really could have gone either way. I didn't predict a at least a dominant win for Ateneo. I did not see it going that way at all after the first quarter. But I think with John Ray, the thing with him, John Ray Pasaol, having brother there, having his brother there. Oh, is that my good?
Yeah, you're good. We can hear you, man. Don't worry.
I'm good. My bad, my bad. Damn, I had to double check that. Might have to
Go for
upgrade
it.
very, very soon. Nah, I think with Pasaol, his motivating factor there was having his brother. If you didn't know, he's the younger brother of UE legend and our personal favorite basketball player, Alvin Pasaol. He was there. So every basket that the younger brother made, he was cheering quietly. He was just there, very, very low key in the VIP section of the just behind the broadcasting table. He was chill, but every time his younger brother John Ray was just taking over the floor for FEU, doing anything and everything with 11 assists, putting up a double double in his season opener. It was invigorating. Medyo ganado. The guy was very, very energetic. He was everywhere. And then Jorik, hats off to Jorik. Um, it was a tumultuous off season for the FEU Tamaros. If you know, you know. But for FEU to hold over and at least give Ateneo a run for their money. It was one of the best season opening games I've seen in a very very long time. So hats off to them. Moko Nate, you're a monster. Um, you terrify me every time you step on the floor. So yeah, I'm expecting a lot of good things from FEU actually. It's going to be a lot of closely contested matchups for them for the rest of the way, I think, because this team is low key underrated by a lot of people. Even I did. So it's going to be a lot of prove yourself games for FEU moving forward.
For sure. Now, quick word on Ateneo before we move on to the next topic. I predicted them as my third best team in the elimination round once all squads have played 14 games. I'm sticking with it. I feel that they could have actually won that game more, but there were some self-inflicted mistakes there that they need to clean up on. And Tab Baldwin teams generally get better as the season goes on. Even last season, no matter how much they struggled, their quality of play actually got better as the season went on, even just by a little bit. It was the case 2 years ago too. And Lodi just changes everything. Now, I mean, there's an Nike situation there that if you guys want to know more about, you can read online. But on the basketball court, people kept saying, watch out for Kimani Ladi, watch out for Kimani Ladi. And as the season progresses along, we're going to find out why. This guy is a pro level player playing in college. He's going to be a dynamic pro, probably in the PBA next year and beyond. Well, I guess 2027 because they're moving the draft. And this season, it's going to be a delight to watch him in the UAAP. Now, Ateneo, their next games, I just want to make sure we list it down. They have a good opportunity here to build some momentum and rack up some early wins. Now, Coach Tab himself has said that getting a strong winning record early in the season is going to be very important given how competitive the field is. And by the way, I think this season the teams are going to be more balanced than we had previously anticipated. Ateneo's next games on Wednesday they face UE. They should win that game. Then after that they face Adamson on the 28th. Adamson will be talking about them shortly. They're an impressive team. And then the game after that is DLSU on October 5, then UP on October 8, and then they close with UST on October 11. Is that true? No, they close against NU on October 18. So they're facing two teams that I don't think a lot of people have as Final Four contenders to start the season, and FEU and UE. Then they face Adamson. I think those are three winnable games for the Blue Eagles. If they can go 3-0 somehow, going into the stretch of LaSalle, UP, UST, and U, then I think that's around the time we'll start hearing more of who these Blue Eagles might be title contenders again. Now, I'm not saying they're going to beat the elite teams, but some momentum from winning their early games could end up reaping its benefits. Okay, now we'll go to the other exciting game from Saturday. The De La Salle Green Archers won by 2 against the Adamson Soaring Falcons. Mason Amos, the former Blue Eagle, struggled for most of the night but hit the biggest shot when it mattered the most, a dagger three-pointer. My main takeaway from that game, and yes, the free throws were an issue again. It's one game. I guess we should give Coach Renren some time to work his magic to see if he can improve the mentality. But what was it they shot? 11 out of 26? Let me just double check that real quick.
Yep.
From the free throw line in the game, Nassau only won by 2. They shot 11 out of 26 from the free throw line. Now, Adamson wasn't that much better, but they were 4 out of 10. 11 out of 26 is insane. And by the way, those missed free throws cost them the championship last year in the Phil Oil semis. I keep repeating that. But one more thing I learned is that Jacob Cortez is probably the closer of this team. And by closer, I don't exactly mean he's the best player or he's going to be the most clutch performer or he's always going to give you heroics when you need it. What I mean by that is if you need the ball in someone's hands in tight late game situations, I think it's got to be Jacob. And we saw the proof of that early on. He had two big buckets late in the fourth quarter. That second one where I think I'll have to remember, but he went behind the back, did a crossover, stopped suddenly, and then pulled up. his ability to make tough shots, no matter what the defense is showing, is going to be very critical. And he also had an assist to Mason down the stretch. And second, Adamson is gonna be a problem for anyone who faces them. I know we say that every season. This year, I feel with the improvement of said Manzano, it reaches or it rather increases their potential to another level that wasn't quite there last season because Manzano looks leaner, he looks more explosive, he looks more fit, and he's also taking outside shots now. He hit one three-pointer from the corner and then one long two from the top of the key. And he's not afraid to bang bodies. He's wide, he's long, he's strong. He has nifty reverse layups underneath the rim, kind of like a throwback big, throwback lefty big. Reminds me of Eddie Laure a little bit. A bigger, stronger Eddie Laure. I do feel that Adamson isn't gonna have a sure into the final four this year because of like we saw at Ateneo with UST and FU to some degree, the quality of competition has gotten better. But I think I'm confident enough to say that more times than not, they will be in tight late game situations against everybody in the league. And when you have a coach like Coach Nash who knows how to position his players on the court to get good shooting opportunities, because let's not forget, Adamson was up by three, I think, or four with like 3 minutes left in that game against LaSalle. And then there was one situation, they had an open shooter in the corner. I forgot who it was. If that shot goes in, they probably win that game. So they put themselves in the position to win that game despite trading by 8 at halftime against DLSU. So they're going to be a handful for anyone.
I think the biggest problem that LaSalle had against Adamson was again the same thing with the UP UST game. There wasn't, aside from Jacob, who did really really well in his UAAP debut. I don't think there was anyone who I was terrified seeing on the court. Like you had that someone who's I've been stating the whole for in the entirety of this podcast. I think the takeover guy. Aside from Jacob and Motor Mike, who else would you trust with the ball? Last season you had KQ, so that was easy. That was a
Cheat
simple
code.
play to go to. You can cheat the game. You had KQ, give him the ball, he's gonna do something. This season it's a problem for Lasal because I spoke to a couple of fans after the game, like as everyone was leaving. Most of the sentiments from the fans were LaSalle did not deserve to win, but because of the talent that they had in Jacob and Mike, and to an extent Mason Amos, they were able to do that. It was an ugly win. It's a win regardless what we say or what I say, especially. It's still a win. But again, LaSalle had no business letting Adamson get that close. If I'm being completely honest, LaSalle should have blown Adamson out of the water, at least based on talent. Now, for Adamson, their problem was they did not spam Cedric Manzano in the middle when Motor Mike was taking his minutes on the bench. That was the biggest problem that Adamson had. Monte Montebon, bless his soul, I hope he makes a three because he missed all four of his attempts in this game. And even to an extent, Erolon, his shooting was very, very bad. He had, if I'm reading this correct, it's 1 out of 5. Adamson's shooting should have sunk the Green Archers with the way they played yesterday. But again, by the talent of LaSalle and by the heroics of Mason Amos, who redeemed himself from that airball three with the game winner, essentially, they escaped with the win. But again, the fans were very happy that they won, especially for the LaSalle fans. But it was not a convincing win to a lot of them. So it's a first step towards making that Final Four run. And I still believe LaSalle can make the Final Four. I still believe they're gonna finish first. That's a sure thing, at least in my opinion. I think it's going to be a first place finish for LaSalle, but again, it was not convincing yesterday.
So the non-Mike minutes was a problem. in that game. And I think I have to give credit to Coach Nash to some degree because he was able to stagger Manzano's minutes in a way that Manzano had the chance to make an impact with Mason defending him quite a few times while Mike was on the bench. Now, Mike was a +9 when he was on the court. So when he was out there, and to be fair, Mason was a +13. But with Mike, the eye test supported as well. What when he goes out, it becomes easier to score in the paint. You can get rebounds against LaSalle. The other guy that he didn't quite play well in the opener, but LaSalle needs to step up is Kian Baklaan. Baklaan, 0 of 6 from the field in the opener, only had 1 point, 4 assists. I thought that he was making an extra effort to set his teammates up rather than look for his shot, and that kind of threw him out of rhythm. Because if you go back to the Phil Oil games and how Kian was playing, he was just like, go baby, go. Go gadget, go. Get the ball, run, shoot, high octane offense. So eventually, I think we should be able to see that Kian because we can't forget that Nash also is a great defensive coach, puts his team in the position to win by playing disciplined defense. They won't beat themselves. And actually, to some degree, it's a good early test for DLSU. Ultimately, if you're looking for areas of improvement, if you're LaSalle, you need guys like Makalalag, Abadam, and Pablo in particular to step up more and get you more baskets in the paint. Marasigan is a weapon they kind of need at this point because of his ability just to barrel down, use his wide body, and get to the free throw line, hit people, maybe start a few fights. No, I'm just joking. But he's impactful. They need him because he's one of the guys who can go downhill and get to the paint. But ultimately, it's going to rest in the hands of Cortez and Phillips. Phillips with his much improved offensive game, that midi pull up. He had a clutch like 18-foot jumper when LaSalle badly needed a basket in the fourth quarter. Has that push shot. His post moves are getting better. And he is, to me, the best player in the UAP right now. I think I have to give him that designation. But he's not a dynamic offensive weapon. And by that, I mean he's going to create, he can, but he's not like a create something out of nothing guy all the time. Because if you can protect the paint, the interior, yes, he's making the jump shots, but if you're LaSalle, your best offense isn't Mike taking jump shots, right? Which brings me back to the Jacob part of all of this, where pick and roll, handoffs, reading the defense, stoic demeanor, never too high, never too low. And in clutch situations, you need guys like that. I think you're going to see the ball in Jacob's hands. But I also feel there will be a lot of games this season that LaSalle is going to win with their defense alone. Their ability to press, create pressure, create turnovers. And when you get Kian and Jacob on the break pushing, we talked about how UP is dangerous earlier when they can create turnovers and get on the break. LaSalle is equally dangerous. And they have Mike protecting the rim as insurance. But my main takeaway from the way LaSalle performed, Ateneo performed, UP performed, UST, and the other teams is that at least at the top, 1 to 5, maybe you can even make it 1 to 6. It's gonna be more balanced than people thought. It's gonna be more competitive than people thought. Now we'll see because we've seen UAP seasons in the past where as the season progresses, other teams just keep getting better while other teams keep going downhill. Well, at least early on in the season, every game, and UE, I'm really hoping you guys stay competitive because I don't want you guys left out, okay? But every game is gonna be worth watching. And that's a refreshing change compared to last season where no, Phil Oil pa lang last season, alam na natin, Lasal and UP na sa finals eh, di ba? It was like an inevitable clash. So this season it's a little different and I think it's good for the league.
No, definitely. Like having everyone at least making a shot. I have currently I have FEU and you and Adamson fighting for that final four spot. That final four spot is up for grabs. It's gonna be close between those three universities. And maybe even I don't want to say it. I really, really, really don't want to say it because it's an overreaction or maybe an overcompensation. But there's a chance. There is a very, very terrifying chance that this season is the first one that we see in a long time where UP might not make the final four. That's just how
Wow.
deep the field is. It's an overreaction. I can admit that. I'm proud to admit it's an overreaction. But if they play the exact same way that we just saw them play today, we might not see UP in the final four because I had it LaSalle, Ateneo at 2, UP at 3, UST at 4. Overreaction, it's LaSalle, Ateneo, UST, and UP, Adamson, NU. And even FEU fighting for that last spot. It's super competitive. Navs, it's one of the best and I think most exciting seasons that we're gonna see in a very, very long time.
Let's get to some questions now. And I agree with you, by the way. Not about the rankings, but in terms of this being an exciting, balanced season. I think it's too early to make power rankings right now or rankings, but if I had to, just based on performance, you have to give one to UST. Just from performance this weekend. UST 1, LaSalle 2, Ateneo 3, NU 4, um, Adamson 5, FU 6. UP 7, UE 8, but that's just in a one game sample size. So if we had to make a power rankings from the first weekend. So questions from the mailbag from Ron. UST set the bar so high that we need to taper our expectations from next year. I think Ron means is UST ready to be a title contender now? I think it's a TBD to be determined because we can't judge how good this team is until we see them complete with Fortsky Padrigao. And because he's just going to play such a big part of the offense and even the defense with how often he has the ball, right? But I definitely see UST as more of a threat for title contendership now compared to when I did before the season started. Okay, how about you? Do you agree?
UST, it's a TBD, definitely. I am not seeing their full potential yet. I don't think they will crash the party for a lot of teams this season. They will be a frustrating team to deal with. But title contenders, I want to see Forsky there. Maybe in by the sixth or the seventh game. Maybe in the second round. I'll bit more sure by the second round.
Questions from Nicolo. Best jersey of the weekend. That's a good one. Best jersey of the weekend. That's a very good question. Do you have an answer?
I actually have one. It's LaSalle. I have to give it to LaSalle.
Really?
Dude, LaSalle's jersey yesterday, it was nice. Sobrang linis. The
I
green
like the
looks
green
good.
last season more
Looks
though.
good.
The
Really?
darker green. Yeah, because that I like that dark green. It reminded me of like the early 2000s.
Huh. Interesting.
Aha. Interesting. Yeah, good question. Hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely LaSalle for me though.
Best jersey. I kind of like UP's jersey. I even like the outline. Now, look, I don't like obviously sponsorships. You have to do what you have to do. I don't like that there's so many sponsorship. It kind of makes
Mm.
it dirty. But if you imagine that not being there, it kind of looks clean. And we haven't seen their new maroon slash kind of more reddish jersey now. I think that's gonna be even more impressive. But let's see, because we've only seen one colorway from each team so far. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. From Luis. Is Ateneo for real? Yeah, they're for real. They're for real. I think they're gonna ultimately be the third best team in the UAP, like I said. However, UST is giving me some reason to think about now, but who knows? UST might be 2 or 1 with the way they played, right? Early sample size. But I think Ateneo is gonna be in the mix when it's all said and done.
Yeah, very simply, we're back. That's it. At
Uh,
the very least, in
one
contention.
1 year absence. We're back. Jesus.
Ateneo
uh,
is not real.
okay, before we go here, Carl, give me one hot take based on the opening weekend. Give me your one hot take.
I think I just did. I think I did.
No, no, saying Ateneo is for real is not a
No,
hot
not that.
take.
Not
Which
that
one?
one.
Which one?
UP misses out on the
UP
final
missing the
four.
Wait, you said they might, but a hot take would be you saying that they will.
No. The one thing that I'm terrified about are UP fans because they are very, very passionate about the fighting battles, and I understand. My parents are from UP. They might kill me in my sleep before for this. But the UP fighting Maroons missing out, it's not it's not a sure thing. But John Ray Pasaol might finish, well, hot takes again. John Ray Pasaol finishes number 2 in the MVP rankings this year.
Okay, now we're talking. Now we can get some hot wing sauce to sponsor us for the hot takes. But hey, look, if the stats from the opening day was any indication, okay, that's my hot take. Hmm. I wish that the FSAs could still win MVP awards because my hot take might have been Collins Akoi would win the MVP award. Okay, how about this?
I like that.
Collins Akoi ends up with the highest statistical points this season in the UAP.
Okay, that's hot.
I mean, 29 points, 17 rebounds is off to a pretty good start,
Yep,
right? So,
definitely.
yeah, well, we're making hot takes for fun. Anyway, Carl, thanks for joining me, man. Do you have anything you're working on that you want the people to know?
Right now, it's just me and the humble bowl of boys just getting back. We're just living our lives right now. It's been a long off season for us because content and all of that. But yeah, right now I'm just enjoying the UAP season. Season 88's off to a crazy, 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 crazy start. The first round's gonna be crazy. I'm definitely sure. We're gonna see a lot of close records, maybe some 4-3s before the first round ends. So yeah,
Got you. Got you. Well, nice to hear from you, Carl. Thanks for joining me, and I'll be seeing you more often at the game. See you around, bro.
see ya, man.